Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome into the pod at the Palace. I'm Curtis Wilkerson, joined by my colleague and resident ball knower, Scottie Bordelon, here from Natty State Sports Studios in Fayetteville. We've got a jam-packed show today that I think people are going to be really excited about. But before we get started, just want to hit everyone with a quick reminder on all the ways you can watch and listen to our content at Natty State Sports. After all, we're not even a month old yet, so some of you just might not know where to find us. Be sure to hit us with a subscription on the Natty State Sports YouTube channel, where you can find all of our shows. I mean, that's the Pod at the Palace, the Six Pack, the Bombastic Baseball Pod with Andrew, the John Neighbors Show, our weekly wagers betting show, the Boss Hog Podcast, you name it, we've got it, and all of our shorts are there too. So it's all free, but we'd really appreciate you clicking that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. You can also find most of our content in podcast form. That's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, you name it. We are definitely there. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to it. Scottie, first, let's touch on this very briefly because we had different plans for this episode today, but we would be doing a disservice if we didn't touch on it at least. Devo's back with the team. Must announce that on his radio show Monday night. Just your maybe initial reactions to his return.
Heard it was a possibility a few days ago. And then was told that he was at practice like at 3:00 on Monday. I guess it was heard that he was at practice, and then it's just kind of a wait and see if they're going to put anything out there. You kind of figure the answer is going to be no, and then then realizing that it's an Eric Musselman radio show on Monday, that's where the news is going to drop. And that's kind of where we are now. Like that's the breaking news hub for Arkansas basketball at this point is Eric's radio show.
Because we don't get to talk to him.
We don't
anymore. It seems like before games. Listen, with Devo, happy he's healthy, happy he's safe. I'm happy he's back. I don't know that this is going to change the dynamic with this team at all. And I'm very anxious to see how it works out. Like I don't know the exact circumstances with everything that's been going on. But I do know he's been gone and like away from the team for a couple weeks, and maybe you've had communication with him, maybe you haven't. But like we said last week, like you haven't been with him shooting in a gym, right? I mean, Those guys have been grinding, you haven't been there. So we'll see how it'll be received in the locker room. Like I imagine it'll be good, but I don't know that that'll be a unanimous thing throughout the locker room. Sure. Especially if he's right back to playing, 30 minutes a night, maybe at the expense of others. We'll see how it goes. I'd say if you want to hear us talk more in depth about that, tune into to Tuesday's John Neighbors show, because that's going to be a heavy topic there. But I don't know about you, Scottie, but we got other things to talk about, and I'm kind of excited about it, man. Portal season, which is about a month out. This has been a rough go for the Razorback basketball team. I'm kind of excited to see what comes next. And so what we wanted to do today was really just kind of set the table for expectations. And we're going to operate under the assumption that Eric Musselman will be the head coach at Arkansas. If he's not, well, obviously that'll change some things. But I think, Scottie, the first thing that we have to do here is kind of figure out the numbers, because it's going to be a roster flip.
For sure.
But what are they guaranteed to be working with? And how do we feel about how this might shake out, and how many scholarships are going to be open? First, I'll set the table with L. Ellis, Denijay Harris, Chandler Lawson, Jalen Graham, Mekhi Mitchell, Jeremiah Davenport are all out of eligibility. So that's 6 open spots minus the 2 incoming freshmen. So in theory, you're going into the offseason with 4 openings. But maybe we should play a little stay or go with the rest of these guys here, because I have a feeling they're not all going to be back. Let's start with the returners, Scottie, and just kind of roll through this fairly quick. Devo technically has another year. I don't think he's coming back, bro.
I can't envision a world where he would come back for another year. Like he's already kind of tested the waters, and got like a draft workout last year. I think it's probably time for him to explore some professional options.
Learn Chinese.
Something beyond college.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm with you, man. I'd be very, very surprised if he was a fifth year, a senior at Arkansas next year.
I don't know if we don't know what next year looks like.
Who knows
for the entire program? So don't know if he even wants to do that, or if everything stays status quo. with leadership.
Right.
They might encourage, like they do a good job of like maybe encouraging guys to go take a professional, like just go start your professional career, because if you keep staying in college for that would be next year would be Devo's 5th year. That's taking a year off of your professional clock.
Yeah.
And that's something they've talked with guys in the past about.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
go ahead and start your pro clock and go get some money.
100%. And it doesn't even have to be like draftable guys like you're alluding
Right.
to. I mean, they did that with JD. They did it with Audis.
Yeah.
Even Amude, who I would argue that he maybe should have been drafted. But, I think that's probably what we're looking at here. Trevin Brazil is an interesting one because his stock has dropped. I think that's fair to say. But he's already transferred once. He would not be eligible for a grad transfer. We'll see what they do with the whole 2-time transfer thing and how that rule kind of pans out. I know it's like in the courts or whatever now. Personally, I lean towards he's going to declare for the draft anyway, go to the combine and try to show out, because this draft class sucks. And so whether he came back next year and had a hell of a season at Arkansas or somewhere else, I don't know that he would put himself in a better position, because he could have a poor year now with Arkansas, and there's still a chance he could be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think if TB's healthy, I think there's a lot of interest in him, because like even if his stock hadn't slid like it has, I mean he's going to be a project.
Yeah,
I think at the next level, and there's just, you can't tell me that there's not going to be, if TB shows up at the NBA Combine, there's not going to be a lot of people that are interested in like every move that he makes. And so I think he's got the interest of a lot of basketball minds, and it would be a go for me. I just don't think, like, go prove yourself at the Combine instead of coming back to school and proving yourself over a 35-game season. Go prove yourself during the summer.
Yeah.
And make somebody's mind for them.
Yep. I think we're on the same page there. Joseph Pinion, listen, man, like he's been here 2 years. He's been a hell of a teammate. He's worked hard. He's improved. Absolutely. And I have no idea what way he's leaning or if he's even thought about it yet. We're kind of spitballing here. I personally would be surprised if a guy like that is back unless he just really, really loves it at Arkansas. Like if he wants to go somewhere.
He just wants to wear the hog across his chest.
Yeah, then sure. Otherwise, maybe needs to drop down a little bit level-wise and try to build himself back up that way. And then maybe he gets back to a high major at some point. I would be surprised there. I was honestly semi-surprised that he came back this year.
Agreed. Yep.
And again, it's not, insider knowledge of how Joseph Pinion's feeling or his camp or anything like that. It's just, if you haven't played somewhere or found a role in 2 years, like chances are you're going to look elsewhere. So it wouldn't surprise me there. Two guys that are interesting to me, one being Caleb Battle. He only has 1 year remaining, so he could theoretically come back. He's already a 2-time transfer, so this will be a 3rd time for him. He's already used the grad transfer thing. I get the hunch he might be on the Aldi's Tony plan of you ain't getting drafted, dude, but you're probably gonna start that clock. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you too. I think there's a landing spot somewhere. Where that is, I don't know. But I think if you look at the totality of KB's game, like he's gifted on offense, and maybe you find the right situation for him professionally. I think he could really take off. Defense clearly needs some work and some attention, especially after you asked me on the last podcast why I thought that KB didn't play a whole lot against LSU, and I was like, oh, it's because he's getting his 2-point attempts blocked, and he got a 3-point attempt blocked. Well, he gave up some threes too. So he was very in the negative against LSU, but he's gifted enough offensively where he can go start making some, maybe more than college money elsewhere. So I would be really surprised if he stayed in college next year, whether it's Arkansas or elsewhere. I think it's about time that he starts focusing on a pro career.
I think so too. Tremont Mark, interestingly enough, has 2 years of college eligibility remaining. He's got to take advantage of a weak ass draft. Yeah, he just has to. he was at the Houston program, kind of developed a reputation there for some other things, defensively, being coachable, whatever. He's proven that he was an underrated offensive player here at Arkansas.
Yep.
What else does he have? He doesn't have anything left to prove.
No, not at all. And we talk all the time about he's got the most pro-ready offensive bag right now. I mean, we can go guy by guy and be like, there's a bunch of things that you got to get cleaned up with each of these guys for them to maybe have a long career playing professional ball. But Tremont Mark's offensive bag's not going anywhere. And I think if he, gets into that mode where, he's not having to worry about school and he can just focus on ball, he's probably going to be in the gym a lot. Yeah. And he's going to improve, on the whole. I think he's a pro right now. Like his offensive skill set is beyond college.
Yeah. Yep. And there's 3 other guys here. We'll kind of lump them together, even though their situations are obviously different. Keon Minifield, I mean, he's going to have 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's not a grad transfer, but he has already transferred. So, again, like that 2-time thing might come into play here. And then 2 freshmen, Layden Blocker and Bay Fall. I think maybe you're looking at getting 1 out of those 3 back.
Yeah.
Like absolute best case scenario. You're not keeping all 3 of them. You're just not.
I don't think so either.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I think like best case you keep 1 of the guards.
Yeah.
And we'll see what they do with Bay. Like that, we'll see.
Bay seems very like a long-term deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, ideally, like, I know that it's the next topic coming up, but it's like, what do you need out of the portal?
Yeah.
Well, what can you keep from this current roster that you think can benefit you moving forward? I think it's one of the guards.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it obviously hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for Layden or Keon to this point in the season.
I like them both. I would like to keep them both.
Yeah, I think you would like to see what you can do with at least one of those guys. They get a year older. Maybe the game slows down for them a little bit. I think they could pay you some dividends. But I think you might want to try to keep on one of those guys at the very least.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I'm just being honest here when I say, like, I would not be surprised in the least if Arkansas had 2 or fewer of that group of 8 guys we just talked about returning. Like, I just think that's where they're at. And I don't know, like, obviously things can change over the course of the next month. I don't know how much they're going to. Conservatively speaking, let's say that they kept 3 of those 8 guys, and you add that on, that's 5 openings on top of the 4 that you already have. I mean, that's 9 guys out of the portal. And that's conservatively speaking. Like,
right.
We've talked the past few weeks about, like, hey, they might bring in 10 dudes. No, really, though. And so that's why we did this. Like, we wanted to kind of run through these guys and be like, listen, it's new look Hogs.
Yeah,
like, get ready for it.
Like, we've already got 12 guys on the board behind us, and we're about to double it.
That we are.
Double it and some. And
that
so
we are.
You've got to have your options wide open and, start really identifying some things that you, like, really, really, really need.
Yeah. And so we've got, kind of a handle on the numbers now. I think we're operating at, I think 9 minimum. Like, hell, I don't know if they'll fill all those scholarships, whatever. Sometimes Muss will keep one open. We'll see. But that's a lot of dudes to get in. So let's start diving into these needs real quick and maybe just maybe we can try to power rank them a little bit by importance in terms of, what they need. Because to me, correct me if I'm wrong here, but unless, like, Tremont Mark decides for some reason to come back to Arkansas, like, there are 0 starters penciled in.
Right.
Like, there's 0 rotation guys for sure penciled in. So you're kind of operating with a blank canvas here. Like, positionally or type of player, like, where do you think they should start, Scotty? Like what should you try to get and then build around from there? Obviously, they're going to need to get everything, but there are specific players and specific types of guys at each position based on the shit show we've seen this year. Like, where should it start?
I think it should start there with J.P. Pegues or Marcus Foster. Like, it's got to be a guy that can be a point guard or just a guy that you can build your entire team around.
Yep.
And the inconsistencies this season have been with point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the season's kind of going downhill in no time. And the bigs are fine. It's just the lack of we don't like. Who do you think is going to start at point guard on Saturday? Who do you think is going to start at point guard the next game?
Yeah.
Like there's so much inconsistency and it's just the biggest question mark you can imagine at point guard. You've got to. They don't know who their primary ball handler is on a night-to-night basis. You just know that at some point Tremont Mark's going to start dominating the ball. And we don't even know if that's good for this team. And so I think it's got to start at point guard. You've got to have a guy that's on the floor getting
a floor general.
And to me, like JP Pegues, not even available in the portal yet. Don't even know if he's got any desire to do that. Hell, he could go pro after this season.
Yeah.
You know, he could go start making some real money because I can't imagine he's making a lot at Furman. You know, unless people are diving into their 401ks and start paying this dude.
Sure.
But I think it has to start there. Like you need to get the head of your snake.
Yeah.
You got to get at least one of those guys, and maybe it's a point guard and a go-to guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because Tremont Mark, why would he come back?
Right.
So you need a guy that can facilitate, set up, get you organized on offense and defense. Like, a point guard is really valuable on defense too, just making sure everybody's situated. They know what what the game plan is, what the scheme is, and then offensively getting everybody can you score, and then can you facilitate, and can you lead? I think it starts there, and then if that's not a go-to type guy in a point guard, go get you a go-to type guy.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And we didn't talk about this before we started recording here, but point guard was at the top of my list. That's just
gotta have it.
The lack of one this year. I mean, this has been a problem.
Yeah.
And so I think I agree with that. And from there, it's like I think it's a pretty safe bet they're going to get the prototypes this year. Like if they can find the point guard that's 6'6" and switchable and everything else, they'll do that. But if it's not the point guard, I mean, you look at the numbers of guys they're going to have here. They're going to get, 4 at least of those kind of guys who are just in that 6'5" to 6'7" range that are just, tough-ass, defensive-minded, long, versatile guys.
For sure.
That can play the Aldis Tonys, the Stanamudes. You can go on and on down the list, but they're going to bring in several of those guys. He's dropping hints. He's
Don't
dropping
have any
hints,
wing
man.
length.
Yeah,
he started saying that in the Bahamas.
Right. That's not going to be an issue, and it's going to be those guys who, if he decides he wants to go with a huge ass lineup like he did a couple years ago, then he can do that, and it'll be an Aldis Toney type dude playing the 2,
right.
Or you could go small and have that dude playing the 4. It's those kind of guys who can play that 2, 3, 4 spot and just give you a ton of flexibility defensively. They're going to bring in a bunch of them. And that's kind of why, man, if you look at our board, a majority of it's those kind of guys, because we just know that they're going to emphasize that so heavily. So, yeah, that's a given. And I think you can probably or hopefully find, if it's not your point guard, your go-to type of guy there, because I do think it needs to be a guard or a wing.
Right.
For that type of guy who can create. Right. From there, though, I think that they need maybe a stretch forward type, with some length and some skill. And by that, I mean a guy who, in theory, is like Trevin Brazil, who could play the 4 or the 5, but do it effectively. Right. I mean, it's sad.
That would be ideal.
That's where we've been at. I didn't think that I would be in February of this year and be saying, yeah, I think they should probably try to get a guy like Trevin Brazil, but it wouldn't be that hard to get someone who's better to fill that role. But then I also think that they could benefit from having some of those hybrid guys, just like the Justin Smith types, man. And I know they're so hard to find, and we're, it's a pie in the sky thing here. But when Arkansas got Justin Smith, it wasn't like, oh, damn, this is it. This is the diamond in the rough.
I remember when Justin Smith committed to Arkansas. I talked to an Indiana writer. I was like, what is he gonna bring? And then it's probably 4 to 5 points a night. and then he might hit the glass. You know, he's going to get out in transition and run for you. And then I remember writing later that year, one of my predictions was like, Justin Smith's going to average 10 and 5 or 10 and 6, but it's going to look pretty impressive when he does it. Then he one of those.
Yeah.
And then as a guy that, like, maybe the first round of the tournament, when he's got like a massive mismatch, he can go for, 20 and 10.
Yeah.
It's one of those type guys where he can be, throughout the course of the season, he can be a role guy, but in certain instances, he can be a star. In very individual games, he can be a star for you. I think that's, I don't know who exactly that is, because a lot of these guys up here don't seem like role players to me, but I think they can be stars in their role. And I think that's exactly what you want. And I think it's one of those tweener type guys. And I think you just need guys who are okay playing a role and just sticking with it.
Right.
Like just understanding that.
Which is kind of how we built out the board here.
Yeah.
Like Anderson Garcia and Chris Moore, guys back there. Like, those are not – like, if Arkansas gets those guys, like, don't expect them to come in here and average a double-double or something. Yeah. But, yeah, like, be a star in your role and be able to accept that, because I do think that's part of the problem with this team is, fair or not, like, guys came in here with certain expectations of what their role would be, and when it's less than they expected, they haven't handled it well.
No doubt.
And then it's fluctuated a lot, and so that complicates matters more.
Yeah, I think there's, like, definitely, like, what we've even got up here right now, there's tiers to it. It's like a guy that you can build around, maybe a top dog in the front court or two, and then energy guy, a big, a wing guy that can really fill it up for you on a given night, and then just guys that will just do the dirty work. Like, you need all of those different pieces, and it's different guys that have to complement each other for your team to click.
And you got to get a couple actual big men.
Yeah,
like big men.
Yeah, there's not we don't really have any big men on this board right now. We've got some guys that are, intriguing at like 6'8" or 6'9", but they're not going to be, major rim protectors or anything
SEC
like that.
Starting centers, which is what they're going to need.
Yeah, but I think we can change that today.
Yeah, I think we're about to change that right now, actually. What we did is essentially, we've got a dozen or so targets already on the big board, right now behind Scottie, and it's guys who are off of teams Arkansas has played already this season. Why? Well, like, we know Muss has a knack for identifying players he's prepped for and coached against and bringing them in. And so what we're going to do today, we thought about going like conference by conference or whatever, but and we probably will before it's all said and done. But what we've done is kind of picked out 14 schools is what we wound up going through, with coaches who are like either very much on the hot seat or nearing the end of their careers, or coming up as like very hot candidates who are likely to take other jobs in the offseason. And the theory behind that is like, when there's a coaching turnover, it's more likely players off those teams are going to explore their options, right? So like it's more likely that players off these teams will be available than others. And so we went through a list, and I'll throw out the schools real quick. I mean, it was USC, Louisville, Miami, Kansas State, Michigan, Florida Atlantic, Washington, Florida State, Stanford, Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Arizona State, Minnesota, and Vandy. So that's a lot of high major programs. Some are, again, like older coaches might be getting ready to retire, young up-and-coming coaches who might dip out, or just programs that should be better than they are, and they might be firing their coach here soon.
Right.
And so we kind of took these. I think you took the odd numbers and I took the even, and we rolled through them. But let's talk about some of these guys, because, man, like we just went through this, and, again, trying to be as realistic as possible. I thought there was a pretty good amount of players we could work with. I will go ahead and start by saying I just skipped over Louisville because I'm past that. Like, I'm done with that experiment.
And I'll go ahead and say I skipped over Washington.
Yeah, and so we both took a look at a couple rosters and we were like, nah, fam.
No offense to Washington, but the guys that you would want from Washington are like Keon Brooks, who like next year would be like an eighth year guy, seventh or an eighth year guy. So you're not going to pluck that guy away.
Right. And Louisville's Louisville.
It's Louisville.
So we'll just leave it at that. So Scottie, let's start with you. I know there was one guy in particular that caught your interest, USC.
Yeah, Vincent Iwuchukwu.
You want a big man?
Did I say that? Did I say that right?
Sounds good to me.
7'1", 240. It says his birthplace is in San Antonio, so he's not unfamiliar with the South. He's an imposing figure. When was the last time Arkansas had an imposing figure in the lane? When was that?
Connor Vanover. I couldn't even get it out of my mouth.
Was it legitimately Daniel Gafford?
I think
like
so.
A guy that it's a guard. You're 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
You're driving the lane. You see Daniel Gafford. You're probably thinking, probably need to change my plans here.
Yeah.
I'm not attacking the lane if Daniel Gafford's standing there. Well, Vincent Iwuchukwu is 7'1", 240, grown man. What I wrote down in my notes here, I was looking at his bio at USC. He's had cardiac arrest, and he had lumbar discectomy. Might be
bad heart, bad back.
Might be red flags.
Yeah.
But is he worth taking, a flyer on?
It worked out for Kansas State with, I can't remember his name now, Johnson.
Oh, Keontae
Johnson.
Yeah,
the Florida kid.
Yeah, he was electric. But Iwuchukwu this year, he's in his second year, like he's in his sophomore year at USC. So he hasn't transferred anywhere, and he's still, pretty young and moldable. I would say not going to shoot threes. He knows to stay in his lane. Very much so a better shot blocker his freshman year than his sophomore year to this point, but he's gone through it.
Yeah.
He's gone through it since that freshman year, but I think there's a lot of upside there, and I think at this point it's kind of, if you see a guy available at 7'1", 240, I think you got to check him out. Especially the way that Arkansas has been protecting the rim lately.
Right. And yeah, like USC is an interesting one to keep an eye on because, Andy Enfield's been there for a while. They've kind of underachieved. A lot of spotlight on him with Bronny James coming into the season. And that team, they stink, man. Like that, it's been a mess.
They've got Isaiah Collier, Boogie Ellis.
Yeah.
And who else? Bronny. And they stink.
Yeah.
Stink
it's been tough on them. So I wouldn't really be surprised to see a change there or to see kind of a max exodus. So this would be a name that wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah. To come available. And the first team I really looked at was Kansas State.
Love it.
Who beat Kansas yesterday. so good for them. But it's a really interesting bunch to keep an eye on if Jerome Tang, who would be a candidate at Arkansas if they were to have an opening, leaves. And the thought process behind that, it's like, oh, well, he's only in his second year there. He's done well. As I understand it, there's a lot of animosity there and resentment between him and administration because of the way the whole Naquan Tomlin situation was handled.
Okay.
Who's at Memphis now. Mm-hmm. And it's to the point where, he's popped up as a candidate for a lot of the similar jobs that, we've heard Muss's name mentioned with Louisville, some others. So it wouldn't be surprising at all to see him go. And if he does, obviously there's going to be a lot of guys there who open up. The first one that pops up to me is they've got a guard in Cam Carter, who I really, really like, man. I mean, he started his career at Mississippi State, actually. I don't even remember him being there.
I really don't either.
But I think he actually might qualify as a grad transfer, though, because he has been at Kansas State for a couple years now. So you'd have to keep an eye on that. But he strikes me as a potential game changer. I mean, he's 6'3", 200, so tall enough, but he's got some bulk to him. He's a little bit turnover happy, but he's also a go-getter, right? Like he's a bucket getter. So
yeah, he had 19 and 11 against Kansas.
Yeah, 19 and 11 against Kansas. He stretches the floor.
Played all 45 minutes.
Yeah, 16, 5, and 3 on the season. He's averaging nearly 2 steals per game too. So I really, really like him as kind of that go-to kind of guy who could be your primary ball handler. At Kansas State, man, they've got a bunch of dudes, honestly, like Arthur Kaluma is an incredible fit and a guy who they should have targeted harder last year.
I loved him at Creighton.
Yeah. Killed it at Creighton. 6'7", 225. He's that dude who can play the 3, 4, or the 5 for you. I just don't know about his situation because he's only been there for a year. I think he's going to go pro. He's got college eligibility left. I think he'd go pro. But a sneaky one to keep an eye on, and remember this name, is R.J. Jones. And he's a freshman guard with Kansas State. Like, if you look at his stats, you won't be impressed by him. He's had some moments. I think he had 14 on South Dakota State earlier in the season. He's played here and there, in Big 12 play as a true freshman. But I sat at an EYBL event in Kansas City with Gus Arginal before his senior year started, and he went on and on and on and on about how much they loved this kid. I mean, they freaking loved R.J. Jones.
Okay.
They were just too late getting into it. And the other thing was they had already signed blocker. They already had him locked up, so they weren't trying to add another one at that position. But I get the feeling, if that dude were to come available, like, listen, if Arkansas's got 9 or 10 scholarships to fill, they're not going to get all stars, right?
Sure.
Like, you got to have those role guys. Young guy with high upside that they saw something in. Like, if R.J. Jones pops up, that's probably one to pay attention to. And then, Scotty, I know you you had Miami. I was kind of pissed that we split these up every other one, and you had Miami because they got some dudes.
They do. Wilgo Poplar, 6'5", 197. He's in his third year at Miami now. I mean, you look at the three-point numbers, he's almost a 39% three-point shooter for his career.
He's a stud. This dude's a stud.
I mean, that's pretty solid. And just, not only comes from a conference like the ACC that's tough, shoots the ball really well. He's over 43% from three this season alone, over 37% last season. And I think this popped into my mind when I was looking into him today. And I thought back to when Tremont Mark committed to Arkansas and signed with Arkansas, that Tremont had all of the NCAA postseason experience that you wanted. Like, he's been on the stages that Arkansas basketball wants to get to.
Yep.
Wilgo Poplar's got Final Four and Elite Eight experience.
Yeah. 2
different seasons. Went to an Elite Eight, went to a Final Four. So he knows about winning. He knows what winning is like. And you want guys that come from winning programs instead of guys that come from other ACC programs like Louisville. Wilgo Poplar really stands out. So yeah, I really like him. He's like that. He's one of those tweeners at 6'5", but it's not like he's a light 6'5". He's almost 200 pounds. So he's well put together.
Yeah, he is.
If Jim Larinaga likes him, it's hard for me not to like him.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like with Larinaga, he's just that guy who's getting older and older and older. And this season, they brought a lot back from a Final Four team.
It hasn't gone as well as they.
Dude, they scored 38 points on Virginia. I know Virginia D's up. They scored 38 points on them last night.
I think it's their lowest ever in an ACC game.
Yeah.
That's not
Did you
ideal.
see the timeout where it was a 30-second timeout, and it's like the whole team, was like meeting on the floor huddled. Larinaga's the only dude just sitting on the bench. He just looks defeated. He didn't even get in the huddle. And so that's why I added him to the list. I was like, oh, damn, he's checked out.
Maybe Wilgo Poplar doesn't want to play at Virginia anymore.
Right.
I mean, you can go try your hand at Tennessee or Kentucky or something like that. Well, he actually played it at Kentucky earlier this year, I think. So,
Yep.
Not unfamiliar.
And they got another guy, right? A youngster that you like?
Yeah, I really like Kaishan George. Bigger than Poplar, 6'8", 205.
Switzerland.
He's a freshman this year. Yeah, he's a international talent. 41.5% three-point field goal percentage on good volume.
At that size?
It's one thing to shoot 40, almost 42% from three on 30 or 35 attempts a year, but he's getting them up. And I love the volume, above 43% from three in ACC play. So it's not like he's just doing it against North Carolina A&T or Morgan State, Stonehill, Elon, those teams. He's doing it against, some competition that's got really good athletes, can close out on you. So, I like him. Plus that he's from Switzerland, so probably going to stay pretty even keel all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Very neutral kind of guys. And the one thing about Miami, though, is we know their NIL situation, especially in basketball, is it's no joke. So
yes,
you might have to empty the bag, especially for a dude like Wilgo Poplar. But he kind of qualifies as one of those guys that you can really build around. He's a hell of a player.
Yep.
I had Arizona State, and it's interesting, man. Like I wonder if that marriage with Bobby Hurley might be approaching a divorce. Like it just ain't been working the way they thought it would. I've watched this team. I don't like them. I really don't. They cost me some money in the Bahamas. We talked about that earlier.
Don't know what to expect from them night to night.
It's
Sounds
a weird,
kind of familiar.
The roster, yes, the roster reminds me a lot of Arkansas's, and so I'm hesitant with guys but hey, like they did produce Jalen Graham. So let's
Jalen
be
Graham's
honest.
Arkansas's best player at the moment.
Yeah. So maybe you do need another guy from there. They have a hell of a lead guard though in Frankie Collins, who I really, really like this kid. He's a hell of a lot of fun. He's got a big personality. I appreciate his stat line. Like you can see it if you're watching this on YouTube. 13.5 points, 4.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He's also averaging 3.1 steals per game, which is crazy.
Ooh, love that.
That'll play, even though he's not a great shooter. He's a sub 30% shooter from three.
You got to do something. You got to be great at something else if you can't shoot it.
Exactly. And if if you can score it, obviously he can. But you're grabbing rebounds at the point guard position. Musk loves that. Good assist rate there. And 3 steals a game. That's JD Notte, senior year level stuff right there. I really like this Frankie Collins kid. Again, a guy that I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him come available. Whether Hurley's back or not, those Arizona State guys hit the portal all the time, and he would be one that would definitely have my attention. I like this dude a lot. Move on to Michigan. We saw Michigan play a couple times in person.
We did.
Yeah,
down in the Bahamas. Yeah, I love Terrence Williams II. I looked at his bio earlier, and it said that he respectfully asked that you include the second at the end of his name. So I'm gonna do the man a solid. Terrence Williams II, 6'7", 225. Also in his bio, he's a hybrid forward.
Great.
Which I feel like every forward in basketball now is a hybrid, especially the ones that Arkansas likes. But strong rebounding, known for consistent defensive efforts. I think you need that. You need all of that. I don't know that Arkansas's gotten consistent efforts defensively from pretty much anybody this year.
No.
Efficient shooter, 12.5 points per game, minutes leader for Michigan. He's almost shooting 40% from three. So there's a lot to like with Terrence Williams, and he's that tweener that you really like. Like he's 6'7", can step out and shoot, but he's also he likes, I think at 225. I think if you're a guy that's 215 plus, like you probably at that size, you're a guy who really likes contact. So,
yeah, he got some meat on his bones. I like that.
You need some toughness, whether it's on the perimeter or on the interior. I think Terrence Williams is a guy that could give that to you.
That Juwan Howard situation's tough in Michigan. That was an easy one to include. That whole ordeal is that's tough, man. I don't know what's going on there. Kind of the opposite end of the spectrum is Florida Atlantic. Man, that's such a fun team. They are so fun to watch. The only reason they were on this list is because I just am very confident that Dusty May is going to get a big job this offseason. This was a Final Four team last year that ran it back. Like they were able to bring all those dudes back. And again, like even if Dusty May were to return, with the trajectory that some of these guys are on, I just don't know that Florida Atlantic can pay him in NIL to keep them for another year. I don't know how the hell they did it this year. I don't know that they're going to be able to do it again. So if Dusty May leaves, or some of these guys start checking out their options, here's the deal: if any of these dudes hit the portal, they will immediately become hot commodities. Like they're the real deal. And John L. Davis, the first guy here, Nelly Davis, is a dude who you put together 7 figures. I'm not bullshit. Like 7-figure NIL package, and you get that dude.
Yeah, look at that.
He's incredible.
He's a 6'4" guard that averages 7 rebounds a game.
Dude, he is unreal. I think he's one of the best guards in the country. Like, he's physical. He's slippery. He plays on both ends. He can shoot the 3. He's got the Tremont Mark mid range. Forget that. He's got the Jimmy Witt mid range. Like he is automatic. That dude, he's an all-league guy in the SEC from day one. There's no doubt in my mind he would be the best player on Arkansas's team right now, hands down. I watched him cost me money and beat Arizona by himself. 35 points. He was 14 to 21 from the field against Arizona. He cooked those dudes. And so, like, they've got some other guards like that you take in a heartbeat. Like Elijah Martin's really good. Nick Boyd is really good. But John L. Davis is him. Like that is you want to get a star and build around him. That's your kind of guy. But if their big man hits the portal, he's exactly what you need.
It'd be tough
in the
to
paint.
not go after him.
Vlad Golden is awesome. I love that dude. If you haven't watched him play, like you're really missing out. He's basically like Florida Atlantic. They have 4 true guards, and they just put him in the paint and let him protect. He's 7'1", 240. We've already talked about one guy who's that big. But he is just the ultimate ultimate glue guy on both ends of the floor. And he should be a grad if he's looking to transfer. This dude, I mean, he averages 14 and 7. He's efficient. He protects the rim. He moves really well for his size. I absolutely love Vlad Golden. Like, he is the type of guy who could really be a game changer in the paint. And again, like him, Jonell Davis, they wanted a package deal. Like, I would give him Muss's salary to get both of those guys in here. Like, I absolutely love those two dudes. And I'd like to see both of them play at a higher level.
Built-in chemistry there too.
Yes,
just from having gone to, being this close to being to a national championship.
Yes.
Just last year.
Yeah, and hell, they might get back there this year. I mean, they're going to win the AAC by like 5 games,
for sure.
Especially with Memphis tanking. So,
Memphis
those
is
dudes,
tanking, aren't they?
Whew. And honestly, like, not to spend too much time at this at all, but like if Muss were to leave hypothetically in the offseason, like I know there's some attractive, more established names out there, but I mean, I kind of be looking at old Dusty May being like, look at what this dude has done in a Cracker Jack box of a gym.
Yeah.
And, he's got these guys who have this eligibility who haven't transferred yet that could, maybe dip into the portal. And I'm just saying, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the worst thing.
You keep running into these teams, Scotty, that we've seen in person before. Like, everybody from the Bahamas was on your list, including Stanford.
Yeah.
This is the dude that was talking about out-toughing Arkansas, and every time he rolls to the basket, it's a bucket.
All I have to do is roll to the rim, and I get a layup.
Yeah.
What do you say, Maxime or Maxime? Renaud, 7'1", 250?
Either or. Big Frenchman.
He gets here, I'll ask him how he wants his name pronounced, and we'll just roll with that. From France, he's got a little bit of stuff to him.
He does
a little bit. 14.6 points, 10 boards a game, so averages a double-double. Daniel Gafford might also be the last player that came close to averaging a double-double as a big man. And like you said, Arkansas prepped for him and played for him already in the Bahamas. They know what he's about. I think he's a big plus on the glass. Can shoot threes too.
Yeah.
I mean, the volume's probably not there. I can't remember exactly what his 3-point field goal attempt numbers are. They're not high. I want to say they're between like 30 and 40. So 20-plus games into a season is obviously it's not a lot, but 1+ per game, almost over 38% on limited attempts. So he can hurt you in a bunch of different ways. And Jared Haas really likes him, obviously, or he wouldn't be playing him. But he's one of the guys on a Stanford team that they need him to play well on a nightly basis. Maybe you put him around a little bit more talent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can really maximize him.
For sure, yeah. And I like Jared Haas.
No pun intended.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever. There was definitely pun intended. Jared Haas, I liked him, when we were able to talk to him in the Bahamas, but I think a lot of people were surprised that he still had the job. And they've been okay this year, but it's not going anywhere. And so
I feel like I've heard the Jared Haas hot seat talk since, was it maybe right after the Bahamas? Maybe that's when that started, because, it's a team that went 0-3.
Yeah.
In that tournament. So I feel like
true.
I have heard some hot seat talk for him. So keep your eyes on Maxime Renaud if his name comes available in the portal. I really enjoyed watching him. And he didn't do anything that really was like, man, Arkansas really, really needs that. But I think he's a guy that's pretty steady.
He is, for sure. I wonder if this is finally the end of the road for Leonard Hamilton at Florida State. It very well could be.
He's the best looking old coach out there.
Dude, if I look like him he's damn near 80. He looks great.
Yeah.
He really does.
Never going to change.
Man, first of all, the Seminoles have a guy Arkansas could have taken last spring that they didn't in Jameer Watkins, who was formerly at VCU. He came with Caleb Battle on his visit. They were boys, and he just didn't come. And I think they actually prioritized Davenport over him. But he's having a really nice season for them. But again, he's a second-time transfer now, and it's tough, especially when you're just at your first year at a new school to qualify as a grad. So I have no idea. But if he became available, I'd like to have him. He's 6'7", 225 pounds. He's athletic. He can shoot. He kind of fits that whole mode. I don't know. But another guy that I kind of have my eyes on just in case, because listen, like we said earlier, Arkansas, they're going to be bringing 8 to 10 guys. Like, not every single one of them is going to be a stud. You have to have some role guys. You need some youngsters.
Sure.
Keep an eye on Taylor Bowen. He's a 6'10" freshman. He's kind of in that Brazil mode of a guy who's got great length. He grew a lot, kind of had a late growth spurt. Some perimeter skill set there. Like, you could see a guy who could develop into a pretty versatile player. Look, man, not a guy who's lit it up in his first season, but he's been averaging double-digit minutes per game in the ACC, like as a true freshman at Florida State. He's also a guy that Arkansas pursued really heavily for a while before backing off later in his recruitment. I saw him play live on multiple occasions. Like, he's a really, really good kid. He's smart. He's a good teammate. He's got a really high ceiling. I like him. So, again, like, you look at the numbers and you're like, oh, how much is this guy really going to help? Well, hey, if you're a true freshman playing double-digit minutes in your first season in the ACC, like, Blocker's barely doing that in the SEC, and people think he's got something to him. Well, try a 6'10" dude who can stretch the floor and is athletic as hell, and there you go. Like, somebody who could develop and, maybe not come in right away expecting to be a 30-minute per game guy, but somebody who could help you. And so those kind of guys stand out to me, and I think he'd definitely be one, given the history, to maybe keep an eye on there. Ohio State, first of all, like, what are they do? Like, I just don't understand how that program is not better than they are given their situation. But yeah, they might be looking to make a change soon, and they definitely got some talented players.
Bruce Thornton's really good, and he's from Georgia, not the country, but JD Note area.
There we go.
Listen to this: 97 assists to 21 turnovers this year, and he's a sophomore. So he's a kid that he's up to speed on.
Wait. I'm sorry. Say it again.
97 assists to 21 turnovers.
Dude, I didn't see that.
Did I say that right the first time?
It just struck. It was so outrageous that it struck me. Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, like Arkansas needs one of those freaking guys, like that just finds open guys and just doesn't give the ball up. And he's a sophomore this year, and so it seems like that tells me that he's picked up the college game at least pretty well, or he only went through. It seems like he only went through the growing pains that he might have had during his freshman year.
Looks like he fits the brick shithouse category. I mean,
he really does. 6'2", 215. That's pretty solid, brother. That's like that. Arkansas is going to put that on the spring practice field here in a few weeks.
Exactly.
6'2", 215. Yeah. Almost 35% 3-point shooter for his career, and he leads Ohio State in scoring, leads them in minutes, leads them in steals.
Wow.
So that's I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for in a point guard, but the assist to turnover number will tell you that it is. But it's a guy that you get and you're not taking him off the floor, because like even if he's not shooting the three well, he can defend for you. You can count on him, and he's going to take care of the basketball. That's a guy that stays on the floor a lot.
What's their coach's name?
Brother, I couldn't.
Does anybody know? Andrew Ellis, I see you over there. You know Ohio State's men's basketball coach's name? Why can't I remember this dude's name? Thank you, Chris Holtman. That's why we wanted you in here so bad. Yeah, Chris Holtman. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Man, they got another guy. Again, he's big international men. It seems that we have a fondness for him.
Felix Okpara. I hope I'm saying your name right, buddy. 6'11", 235 from Nigeria. Looked at his KenPom page. He's top 15 in the country in block rate.
Great.
Rim protection, check. 61.5% on 2-point field goal attempts. Efficient around the rim, check. And then you want your big guy to be really good on the glass on both ends of the floor, top 130 in both areas. What I like about him, and I'll go back to rim protection for a second, 52 blocks for the season. No other Ohio State player has more than 14.
Oh, wow.
So
he's holding it down.
It's like if nobody on Ohio State's roster is blocking shots, Felix Okpara might. So, and he's just a sophomore this year, so he's still a young guy.
I love a big fella who averages more rebounds than points. When it's like a legitimate amount of playing time, like 6.6 points, 7 rebounds. I love that, especially if you're blocking a bunch of shots.
For sure.
Give me that. I like that we're starting to add to the legit like center big men on the board.
I feel like when I went through all of these teams and I was identifying guys, I was like, man, this is I feel like I was kind of guard / wing heavy, or like a small ball 4 or 5 type guy.
Yeah.
But we're getting some meat in
We
here
are.
with these new guys.
Speaking of, an excellent segue here. Oklahoma State, Mike Boynton, he's on the struggle bus, man, and Cade Cunningham ain't walking through that door anytime soon.
Definitely is not.
The
Pistons really need him.
Yeah, they really got screwed that year with the sanctions that they got that no one else received, but he hasn't been able to figure it out there. And the Big 12's a tough league, whatever. Anyway, that situation seems like it might be coming to a boiling point there. There are actually 3 former Arkansas recruits to keep an eye on if that job pops open. The main one that I want to talk about, though, is Brandon Garrison.
Okay.
I love Brandon Garrison, and Arkansas recruited him pretty heavily. I think they were in his final 6, final 4 or something. But he took a visit and everything. Just awesome kid. And he's played on the, USA U18 team and everything like that. So he's got a lot of experiences. Man, just freshman big man starting in the Big 12. He's 6'11", 245. He's long as hell. He moves really well. I've seen him, switch on pick and rolls and be able to hold his own, be able to hold up in those situations. Yeah. He moves his feet well for his size. 7 points, 5.5 boards as a true freshman in that league. He's guarding Hunter Dickinson in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I just really, really like him. I feel like he's a contributor on a winning program at Arkansas right from the jump. And honestly, he kind of strikes me as a guy who might be on the Jalen Williams arc, who has a solid freshman season, and by the end of the year, who he is. But then he becomes a household name his second year. I think he's a pro. Really, really like him. He's an Oklahoma kid who was recruited heavily by Arkansas. And so if he hit the portal, that would be a dude who I think would draw some interest. Another one, speaking of brick shit houses, again, Keon Williams. I don't know how familiar you are with his name, but he's a Jonesboro kid.
Did not realize he was from Jonesboro. No.
Yeah, and so he was back and forth. He was at Jonesboro. He transferred. He might have been at maybe one of those prep schools or maybe somewhere in Texas. I don't remember. But then he came back to Jonesboro his senior year. But yeah, 6'5", 220 as a guard. He's strong as a freaking ox, man. And so he brings the toughness, the intensity, the physicality. And listen, he was kind of always a work in progress as an offensive threat, as a shooter at least. But hey, low volume, he's coming around. I think he's 10 of 27 or something on the year. Mm-hmm. So, enough there. But he just brings, I think, what Arkansas has been missing, which is just that jacked wing who will just dive on the floor or just knock you or absolutely run through you on a screen. Right. Or if he's bumping cutters and he puts somebody on their rear end, he's that kind of guy.
Just can send a message that's not just
exactly
from the offensive end. Yeah.
He's an in-state kid too. I really, really like Keon a lot, and I think he's been playing some good ball. One more, and we don't have the stats for him, but I just want to throw it out there. Justin McBride, he's 6'8", 230-pound freshman there. Arkansas was on him pretty heavily early in high school recruiting, and then he kind of tailed off. But then before his senior year, that EYBL and into Peach Jam, he just freaking blew up, and they were too late getting in. But he's a really interesting player. He's got a quirky game. He used to play with Ron Holland. Maybe a 4 or a small ball 5. He's not that athletic, maybe kind of a little bit more below the rim than you would like, but he's got some craft to his game. He can step out and shoot the 3. So not playing a ton as a true freshman, but again, he's one of those guys who maybe if he becomes available, you look at him and you say, hey, you know what? We could get this dude in here for a few years and maybe we got something to work with there.
Right.
Minnesota.
Last guy for me.
Minnesota.
I even questioned putting a Minnesota kid on this list because Minnesota lost to Missouri at home. At home.
It's tough.
But Cam Christie,
we might be saying that about Arkansas in a couple weeks, though. So
fair enough. Cam Christie, 6'6", 190, over 10 points a game. He's a freshman. Over 39% three-point shooting this year. Good volume again.
Dude.
Again, I think there's a major difference in shooting 39% on 40 attempts and then shooting 39% on 100, 120.
Yeah.
He's doing that. Low turnovers. His assist to turnover ratio is nearly 3-1. And for a Minnesota team as a freshman, he started their last 13 games. And so he's got the trust of their coaching staff. And I think there's like a lot of these guys that I've mentioned today are young guys, like freshmen or sophomores. And so I think they're guys that have shown a lot of promise, and they still have room to grow, room to take that next step and really, make a name for themselves. And
Love that.
6'6", 190 from Illinois. I think he's super talented. I really liked what I found out about him when I was doing some research on him.
I mean, you had me at 6'6" and 39% from three. Like,
that's ideal.
You had me right there. You know who didn't lose to Missouri? Vanderbilt.
There you go.
Listen, man.
Perfect segue.
They are not good at basketball.
Yeah.
But they were last year, and Tyron Lawrence was a huge, huge reason why.
Tyron Lawrence gave Arkansas fits when they went there last year, buddy.
That dude is a bucket, an absolute bucket. Like he actually entered the transfer portal in the offseason, and I thought he was going to Auburn for a while. There was another SEC school. It doesn't matter. I can't remember who it was, but I thought he might be heading that way too. Then he ultimately came back. Like Vanderbilt's NIL situation is tough. So he's back, and I don't know that he's like a NBA draft kind of guy, but he will be grad transfer eligible, and I'd be surprised if he didn't try to go somewhere else for his final year. Dude, that guy comes in, he's a starter right away. At the 2, you can play him at the 1, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I think he's draft eligible in 25. Now.
Yeah, and then you look at some of it, like his field goal percentage is sub 40% this year, but like he has to literally do everything for those guys.
Right.
And so I hear you. It's like, oh, LLS had to do everything for Louisville. No, this ain't that. Tyron Lawrence is a hooper.
Yeah, for sure.
We've seen it firsthand many times. That dude is good. He could absolutely help Arkansas in a really, really big way. Do we just doubled our board?
We definitely did. We're gonna have to flip it around.
I know. And here's the beauty of this is here's what I hope happens is obviously none of these guys are available yet, but they're gonna be, right? Some of them. And so what I hope is that we're trying to be as realistic as we can in terms of what we know Arkansas likes to identify, who would be like the guys off the most likely teams who would hit the portal. We're trying to be as realistic as possible, knowing that some of these guys are going to hit the portal, some of them aren't. But what'll be cool is when we get to that point and some of these guys start to enter, and you hear the names, you hear Arkansas's contacted so and then you guys are going to be able to go, oh damn, I remember Scottie and Curtis talking about them. You can come back and listen to this, and you can look at our board. We got it, okay? That's what we're going for. And
started this board in late January.
Yeah,
bro.
Come on, man. And so if they wind up nabbing, oh man, just get us one. But if they wind up nabbing 3 or 4 of these guys, we're gonna listen. I'm not big on commission or holding out my hand, but I will be sending Musk my Venmo, Cash App, whatever, and just being like, listen, dude,
you're gonna have to do that.
I know you were tuned in on the treadmill.
It's like a finder's fee.
Yeah, I mean it's bye week.
I mean these guys aren't hard to find, but just you single them out, identify them, put them out there.
There's no doubt in my mind he's on the Stairmaster right now, just listening to this. He's like, Kirsten, Scotty, those guys are all right sometimes. Let me just see what they have to say. I don't know. Jim Rome's not on yet.
I don't know what it is about their Furman obsession, but watched Furman UNCG on Sunday.
Yeah, it's like
I see why they liked all 4 of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's where we're at with this. But no, this was a lot of fun. The bye week, it's kind of weird not having a game in the middle of the week, but it gives us an opportunity to do something like this when the actual product on the floor hasn't been great.
Not good, dude. There's really nothing to talk about until maybe we get to talk to Eric later in the week, or just kind of what are the keys to getting above 500 again?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to listen to that.
Devo
midweek.
back, good or bad? Trust me, we will have talked about that plenty. So
we don't know if it is good or bad. I think best case scenario is good. Worst case scenario, it's you continue
probably
to
more
get
the same.
You continue to get 20% 3-point shooting. So
yeah, exactly.
One or the other.
Exactly. All right. Got anything else?
I don't, bro.
I'm good. I think we nailed it, man.
Nailed it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Well, hopefully everybody enjoys this. I know it was a little bit of a lengthy episode, but hell, it's going to be a lengthy offseason. So we're trying to get you primed up the best we can. We're going to have this all in our back pocket when portal season actually hits the day after Selection Sunday. So good stuff. We will be back on Friday, and hopefully we'll talk a little ball. Maybe we'll talk to Muss between now and then. We'll see if that happens or not. But, we got to look at what this team's going to be able to do, over the course of these next 9 games, what it's going to look like, what's the approach, how's Devo going to factor in, can they beat Georgia and exact a little bit of revenge? I don't know about any of those things, but we're going to talk about it. For Scottie Bordelon, this has been Curtis Wilkerson with Natty State Sports. Appreciate you for tuning in to Pod at the Palace. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. We'll see you guys on Friday.